Today we are diving into the world of Chef Harold Villarosa, a culinary powerhouse whose journey began in the Philippines until the age of 9. He then transplanted to the South Bronx, New York City. At 16, he got his first job working at the McDonald's on 34th Street so he could buy sneakers. What started as a job to get Jordans shortly turned into a passion that has led him on the path he is currently on in life. The falling domino for Chef Harold's career was when he got invited personally by Chef Renee Ritzetti, co-owner of the 3-star Michelin restaurant Noma, which was rated the best restaurant in the world 4 years in a row, and a 5th year later.
If I don't work for Mama Fuku, how can I stage in Noma?
How can we say no? Of course. We'll talk afterwards.
Sounds good, Chef.
Yeah.
Chef Harold has been in multiple media outlets, such as Vice's Munchies. He has now planted his roots in Austin, Texas, where he aims to innovate the Austin dining scene with Filipino and Southeast Asian culinary traditions that are mixed with Austin's vibrant energy. Welcome to oko'a.
What's going on, everybody? We're with Chef Harold Villarosa at his beautiful spot on East Austin. Oko'a. We're at oko'a. Opened up fairly recently, around 6 months ago, and we ended up, meeting Chef through Isaac Samataro. Did that shoot probably a couple months ago, and he happened to be in town, and we were able to connect with him. He even sat down on, Isaac's portion of the interview. Got to learn a little bit more about him, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm just opening up a spot. You guys can come check it out," and that's what we're here to do today. So
Yeah, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you for inviting us. It's a lovely place. I'm sure they'll see on the B-roll what it looks like and whatnot. But I mean, it's prime location. It's perfect. And as you said off camera, it's been busy, which is a good problem to have. So you're originally going to get shoes,
Yeah.
and it's McDonald's.
Yeah.
McDonald's a fast food restaurant.
Yeah.
The quality isn't there.
Right.
What was it about McDonald's that I want to make food for a living. Like, this is where I want to be.
Well, I that's when I didn't really, it didn't really happen. Like, it didn't turn on like a switch, right? But I just realized that food can be a denominator. You can create lasting relationships. You can, barter some of the food. Like, I hope McDonald's don't see it because I'm part of their. I don't give a fuck. I already said this shit before. But when I was younger, I used to really hustle the food in real sense. So McDonald's, before they started regulating it, they used to just make so much food, right? Like 20 mac chickens, 30, whatever. Just start because they're so busy, right? So I realized that. So when my friends started coming in, people that worked in BJ's, a sneaker store, anybody that came in from the movie theaters, anybody that came from Target, anybody that came in from TJ Fridays with their uniform to have lunch, they would always get a little extra in the bag, like an extra mac chicken, extra slurpee, or they get 2 extra large fries, or they get their whole meal for free, you know what I'm saying, shit like that. And then on the flip side, on my days off, I would go walk around 34th Street where I worked at, and my day would be like this. I come out the train, I go to Starbucks, get a free drink because they know me already. Free drink at Starbucks. I go to Krispy Kreme, get a dozen of nice warm donuts for free.
that's
Right?
donuts.
Right?
Yeah.
And then I go drop that off at the McDonald's, right? Then I go to Target, grab clothes for the day, buy my shop a little bit, 20% off. Go to BJ's, 10% off. Go to the movie theaters, tickets for free. I watch movies all day. Then come back to the McDonald's that I work at, go pick up all the homies, and then we go to the movie theaters for free. And that was like a daily thing. And just imagine being a 14, 15-year-old just balling out of control, and I didn't spend a dime that all day. Zero, almost $0, right? So I realized what food can do as a denominator, as a barter system. But then I realized you can use food as a creator, you know what I'm saying? As a catalyst, right? So I kind of kept that in the back of my mind, and throughout my whole career, I've been using food that way.
At what point did you start, I guess, going out of your way to cook at home and try to do things, put this on that? Let me go grab this and see if this works good together.
I mean, on Saturdays, I was the fucking brunch cook for my whole family. I would go around the house take everybody's fucking order. I'm like, what you want? And my little sister loved like omelets with like vegetables in it, and then my mom wanted sunny side up eggs with da da da. My brother loved spam with rice. My father liked some other shit. So I would be at the house just doing all the stuff because I wanted to like, eat. So I didn't want to wait for everybody. So I just ended up just making everybody food, and that's how kind of just started. It was terrible at first, obviously, but my father, who was a merchant marine for the Philippines, he started out as a cook, so he kind of just helped me through it and kind of showed me kind of the run-ins of it, and then I just got really good after that.
So when you go from that, learning, the ability to cook, and you're talented, good at it, what's like the next step, the transition from McDonald's into like the full-on restaurant scene?
Nah, man, the next transition was White Castle. You know what I'm saying? Then I did that same thing at White Castle. No, I'm just kidding. When you're young, you don't really realize any of these things, but you're always thinking, I could be a teacher, I could be a nurse, I could. So I went through my motions. I went to nursing school, I went to college. I got like 120 credits, all in sex education. You know what I'm saying? Most of my classes was like sex ed. And then I just kind of just fucked around like regular college kids, right? So I didn't really graduate from high school. I just got a pass because they didn't want me to stay in the school anymore. So I was one of those guys that got taken to the principal's office and the teacher put a P on the thing and just gave us our diplomas there. So I was one of those guys. And then in college, I didn't really finish, and I went to a few different schools. And I just didn't realize, I didn't really like anybody. I just didn't like reading. I didn't like blood that much. You know what I'm saying? And like, but always had the side hustle of like working at a restaurant. So when I was 18, I left New York and I moved to Provo, Utah. And I lived in Utah for like 7 years with me and my young homie that we grew up with. We just dipped because we didn't want to be in New York anymore and be part of the statistic. You know what I mean? And so we was in Utah bugging out and just doing our thing. And then I worked in a lot of restaurants there. Learned about kind of like the Polynesian culture, the Mexican culture, all that stuff. And then 2009, I came back to New York after Obama got elected, and I was like in my room playing Madden and shit, and watching Obama become president. And I was thinking, I was like, man, if this motherfucker can become president, I can do something in my life too. At that moment, so that's when I decided to flip the whole script and come back to New York and really focus on what I'm good at. And I said cooking was what I'm really good at. So I dove right into it and kind of like pushed myself to make it into a passion and push myself to make it into something I like and force myself to do it.
When you, I guess, dive into it, do you kind of like instantly go to like higher end restaurants, or is it something like make your way up to?
Yeah, well, there's a book that came out, Kitchen Confidential, by a chef named Anthony Bourdain. He's a famous like travel vlog guy, but before that, he was a real chef. And he wrote a book, and that book I read in 2001, and it was really about kind of the process of becoming a chef, right? And so, in the book it says, we have to go work for certain people, learn certain things, da 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 da. So what ended up happening for me was I ended up going to culinary school for people that came out of jail instead of people that paid $100,000 or $50,000 for schooling. I paid like $2,000 for my joint, right? So I got the same piece of paper. And the best part about that culinary school, since it was like a low income school, that they had programs at the Food Network. And so we had to go trial and like do some tests to be able to work there. But I passed the test. And so I ended up being intern at the Food Network for like 3 months, which was nuts because at the Food Network, they had a room that was just books, like a library of just food. There was nothing else, just straight food. And on my breaks, I would read like all these chefs that I want to work for and like kind of their paths. And I created a list of like who I'm going to work for when I come out of here. And during that time, on the Food Network, I worked in Bobby Flay show, Sonny Henderson. I did I did Iron Chef, and so I met all these chefs and kind of seeing them and how they work. And then once I got out, I went through the list, and then I kind of went through all of the people that I wanted to work for, Michelin stars to non-Michelin stars. And I lied half the way sometimes on my resume because I didn't really work anywhere except for McDonald's and White Castle. And so, and then I got in, and once I got in, I just bust my ass, and then I stayed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's like one of the major differences you see between like a Michelin star restaurant and like a regular restaurant?
I mean, the color of the people that work there. That's the truth. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot more white people that work in Michelin star restaurants than brown folks and black folks. You know what I'm saying? Especially when I was coming up, 2010 to 2016, it was kind of the hardest time because minimum wage didn't get raised. So just imagine working a full day, and a full day is 16 hours for like $95. You know what I'm saying? And you're like 25 years old and you're working these type of hours and getting paid that much. Your mental state is not good. And so working and then the added pressure of working in a Michelin restaurant and being brown was even a lot more pressure on top of that. So most of the people that I came in with in this business 20 years ago don't do it anymore. It's like the military, right? Half of these guys got PTSD when they watch the bear, they fucking freak out, like shit like that. Like,
Okay, I'll fire everything now. I just was finishing
Step
talking
out.
to Marcus and
Step out.
Okay, I'm gonna talk to Marcus.
Now
I'll
get the
order
fuck off my expo chef now! Get the fuck off! Thank you!
it's really an interesting thing, this cooking thing, but yeah.
What if it's primarily, dominated by white people?
Yeah.
What was it that made you stand out and like you were just different and had success in that field?
Oh man, it really just came down to who wanted it the most. You know what I'm saying? I would come 2-3 hours earlier than everybody and not clock in and work for free and just like get my station ready. Before these tattoos, I had burns on my arm. Like this whole thing used to be filled with burns because I used to burn shit and put in my arms and like really make a lot of mistakes. Um, and and that's what it really just came down to is working, being there before everybody else, leaving before after everybody else. Going through a lot of failures, a lot of food thrown at me. A lot of chefs really, berating me, calling me a loser, like all type of shit, man. Like whatever they tell you in the books and in the movies, it's true, man. It's real deal. And I work for, real European chefs, like hardcore motherfuckers. And yeah, it wasn't nice, but, you know, as a human being, you just want to take the good out of all that. You know what I'm saying? I don't try to remember all the bad parts. I try to remember all the good stuff. And so when I come to work and be with my staff, I only give them the good stuff.
So going on to the European chefs and things
Yeah.
like that, we had read up that you worked with a chef over in Denmark
Yeah.
who has the world-renowned best restaurant in the world,
Yeah.
3-star Michelin level
Yeah.
chef. What was it like working at a restaurant of that caliber, and what are some of the things that you took away and learned from a chef of that caliber, and just a restaurant of that caliber?
Yeah, I mean, it just really had to come from the beginning on how I got there. Usually to get to a place like that, you need somebody to write you a letter. You need somebody to vouch for you, somebody white to vouch for you. You know what I'm saying? I got the motherfucker at a conference. I pulled him, I got him in a corner in a conference and asked him for the job, So it was in front of like 600 people. There's footage of it. I'll send it to you. I went up to the stage and got on the mic and I asked him in front of everybody, how can I work for him? And he said, I can't say no to you in front of all my friends. So he gave me the job, you feel me? And that's how I got my stars in Noma. And that was in 2011. And he kept to his word. So the whole year we stayed in touch. We emailed each other and he helped me move to Denmark, found an apartment. And then the one thing that stood out the most to me was when the first day I came to the restaurant, he had a broom handle in his hand and he was like sweeping the restaurant, this is the head dude, right? And he's there sweeping the restaurant, cleaning it. And so from that moment on, at that level and at that space, I learned only one thing is that you have to be in tune with the restaurant itself. Like you see, I'm here before everybody. Like always got to be in tune with it. You always have to have a presence. But also at the end of the day, the restaurant is a parallel to your life. So if there's chaos in your life, it's chaos at the restaurant because you naturally you just bring that in there, you know. So you have to take the opportunity to take time for yourself, take time to really balance your life. And so you can come in here with a balanced attitude, with a balanced demeanor, and then your staff can also feel it. And then they can also have that conversation with themselves. I always tell my guys there's only two rules in this restaurant. I only have two rules. You come in early, you come in on time, and you work hard between the lines. That's it. After that, don't bring none of your ego, none of your drama in here. You leave that at the door. This is a safe space. You can be whoever you want to be. We're doing stuff that it's fun. Cooking is fun. Feeding people is fun. So we're doing these things that are fun. So I want that kind of attitude and that kind of demeanor to be it. And that's what I learned at Noma. The people that I work with, we all wanted to be there. There wasn't one single person that said, I'm forced to be here. We all took our time to go over there. There was 30 of us that worked for free.
Wow.
Yeah, worked for free for 3 fucking months. And you know how much money I had to save up to live in fucking Denmark? Worked for free for 3 months just to learn from this guy. And ever since I left, there's always been love with him. That's almost 15 years now. You know what I mean? And every time I see him and everybody that talks about me through him, it's always love because at the end of the day, I put in the work and he can't say nothing about that.
Yeah, that's crazy. Wow, 3 months without pay. That's insane. But
Yeah.
you're betting on yourself at that point because it's a risk. Yes, you're learning from him, but that doesn't always mean it's going to work out.
Because you got to translate that skill into, opportunities later on down the line. And I guess going into your opportunities, once you left Denmark, what was the next stop? And then I guess when did you get into opening up your own restaurant or partnering up with?
Yeah, well, I ended up going back to New York and working for some really great chefs. I was like 25 around that time. So from 25 to 30, I just kind of went to restaurant and worked for some good restaurants. Like I was at Macondo Aureole in the Lower East Side. I opened Tertulia with Seamus Mullen. I was at Fedora with McD Brinkley. We did a lot of farm to table and nose to tail cooking in Canadian cuisine, like Quebecois cuisine. I opened Butard with Marcus Glocker, which was a Austrian restaurant. We got a Michelin star and 3 New York Times. I was up Say, which is a 3 Michelin star restaurant. I also worked at a fucking chicken spot. We did almost 15 million just on fried chicken, called Pickles in Upper West Side. I was a chef there. And then after that, that's when I started thinking like, I'm about to be 30. I think I have enough skill sets as a cook, cooking wise, that I understand the dynamics of it. I wanted to get into the management part of it. So I decided to start looking for, jobs in that sort. And then I got my first executive chef position at a restaurant called Freeman's Alley in the Lower East Side, which was at that point 15 years old, and it only had 6 chefs run through there. So the legacy of chefs that go through there is high, And so I worked there and I opened their little Banzer Bar restaurant on top also, which is a small 15-seat restaurant where we did a seafood tasting menu. Plus I had a 200 seater downstairs. So that was the first time I ever ran a team that was over 45, 50 people. And I had 2 sous chefs and it was a whole brigade system, like the military. And it was like the first time I really ran a restaurant in that kind of caliber and that kind of, spatial awareness, I guess, and it's massive projects. And so, yeah, I was there for 2 years. And then I opened a restaurant in the East Side called The Stand. It was a project with Dave Chappelle and some other comedians. And it was a comedy restaurant with farm to table cooking. So I had this beautiful pizza oven. We were 4 or 5 blocks away from the Union Square Market. And it was amazing. Did like 700 covers a night. Dave Chappelle and all these guys would perform downstairs, and I would do all the food. And we were touted the panty dropping food in the comedy restaurant game, which never nobody really did. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Everybody was always doing like mozzarella cheese from a bag. We did our own mozzarella cheese and cut it, fried it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so it was amazing. And then the pandemic hit, so everybody got fucked. You know what I mean? Everybody was like lost their jobs, all type of shit. But I ended up pivoting into food media. That's when Bon Appetit was like going through their motions. All of the woke people and all this, everybody got fired. Everybody left. All this stuff, so they were in disarray. So I was like, "Oh, this is perfect timing. I gotta jump in there and get in this mix." And so I slid into Brad Leone, who's one of the characters. I slid into his DMs. I said, "Yo, you can't get back to where you were at before unless you have a motherfucker like me on your team." And so he was like, "I bet." So I went through the process, and then I got the job. So during the pandemic, for a year and a half, I was getting paid mad money just to be on TV to cook and talk my shit and film in the Bronx half the time, which was amazing. And so yeah, I did that for like a year and a half, 2 years, and then there was a project in San Francisco. It was hilarious because one of my friends hit me up and said, "Yo, Brookfield, who is one of the biggest real estate companies in the world, they bought a $10 billion lot in San Francisco, covered 5 blocks, and they built a building that had 4,000 square feet of restaurants in the bottom, and they wanted a Filipino chef to be there." And I was in a barbershop, and I was like, it was like I was on a Zoom call with like 8 executives from fucking Brookfield Properties. And I'm at the barbershop just like, "I don't know, is it enough money?" And I'm just there talking mad shit. And then in my head, I'm like, "Yo, this is bullshit. You're gonna cancel me," you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, and so we worked it out, and then they were like, "Come move to San Francisco." And then I moved to San Francisco. And then in 2 years, me and my business partners and we raised almost $4 million for this restaurant.
Wow.
And we were building it out, da 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 da. But if you haven't been to San Francisco yet, San Francisco is fucking one of the worst cities to open a business in. You have high inflation, high cost of living, high labor. Everything's just high, high, high. So that $4 million, it was minuscule. You know what I mean? It didn't really pan out to be what we wanted it to be. And then we lost the restaurant space. And then so I ended up taking a trip after that in Asia, and took some time to myself. And then I came back to New York and realized New York wasn't the same anymore. I was priced out of the game. There was a lot of young chefs coming up, and I was part of the old school. And so I decided, where else can I go to be a splash? And Austin's always been on the radar. And so I came down here just for vacation for a week, just to chill. But then a bunch of people heard I was here. And so they were like, "Yo, come through, do a tasting, da da da." I met with some, restaurant owners. I was like, "Damn, it's a lot of work down here." And so Paul Key with this restaurant group was the only one that was like, "I'll give you a restaurant. You can run it. It's your spot, it's your space. Just be the chef." I said, "I bet." And then so I took the job, and then I moved to Austin February 2024 full time, and then we're here.
I was gonna ask, how did we get so lucky to have a world-renowned chef like you? But there's a story. Is there like a major difference in the food business in New York and here?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's not. Here it's a little. It's all about vibe. Like I feel like some restaurants you go through here in Austin don't have the vibe. The music is not right, or the food doesn't match the space, or the service sucks. Like, I treat this space as a New York space, so I like it when people are waiting to sit down. I do it on purpose. I'll leave a couple of tables empty just to have that area right there, 8 o'clock packed. So when the 8 o'clock reservations start coming in and this whole thing is packed, the back street is packed, the window is like people are waiting. It's part of the move, and then we open it. Bang, we sit everybody all at the same time. And so it creates a vibe, and then the noise level starts getting raised, and then I start playing fucking Biggie, and then it starts even more like, you know what I'm saying? So you just, I think that's the difference between us and everybody else in Austin. Is we like to create the vibe here, and I think that's one thing that's missing in Austin is just the vibe feel, and you know restaurants like these are not are common. You know these are like tight quarters, right? Everything's sort of tight. And other restaurants in Austin, we have space. We got space to sit, like you know. But we want to have that feel. So I think that's the thing that we're doing different is we're trying to make it feel like a New York space, trying to have the vibe, and also you know our food is flavorful. You know I say all the time we have struggle seasoning in our food. You know what I'm saying? we don't have like sometimes we don't measure by grams always. You know what I'm saying? We measure by just a little stuff. You know what I'm saying? So that's how we kind of just work through our process, and we let the neighborhood speak for it. You know what I mean? Like we didn't force that. Oh, I'm gonna be this type of chef. I'm gonna serve these small ass little plates with this fucking food. No, we let the neighborhood dictate it. The neighborhood like fucking skewers and fried shit and whole fish. Blah, blah. Fuck it. We'll give it to them. You know what I'm saying? We're not trying to force our agenda to the people. There's no need for that. These people are coming in and paying. If you look at the fucking menu, people are coming in here to pay a lot of money to come eat. So my only job as the chef, bring the best product in, so the food tastes amazing.
That's delicious.
Make sure my staff is getting paid, and then make sure the vibe is fucking chill. And that's it. And
That's
that's
a big
it.
thing. I mean, that's what they remember the most. Like,
That's
it's
right.
the food
Yeah.
and probably the vibe. So, speaking of vibe, one thing we were talking about off camera is the lighting.
Yeah.
You know, it's dim lighting. Why is every like high end restaurant or like good place, especially in New York too, like why is it always dim lighting? What is it about dim lighting that just attracts people, like makes the environment what it is?
Yeah, I mean everything. All the lighting is on purpose, right? So like you see this fluorescent lighting right here. When this is on at night and it's dark outside, you have like a lighting on the table that looks like it's a performance piece, right? So it's already like lit the way you want it to be, right? So when the servers drop the food, when people are taking pictures for their Instagram, all that stuff is already ready for them. There's no movement of the light or people gotta hold their camera with the fucking light. Like everything's already like focused. So the dimming part is part of that, but also is to create the vibe. If you have a dim restaurant and these tables are all like individually lit, you have a sense of privacy. You know what I'm saying? You sense like this is my shit. This table right here is our VIP table because you can see the whole spot, right? This table sits six, and this table is the loudest. This table dictates how the restaurant rocks. So if this table's having a great time, all the rest of its tables are having a great time. You know what I'm saying? So there's those little things. Track lighting and all that stuff works.
Is that something you taught yourself, or is that just something you just kind of picked up and learned throughout the years of
All
working
throughout
with
the
this?
years, bro. All throughout the years. There's a writer, I mean a restaurateur, his name is Danny Meyer. He owns all the Shake Shacks, right? And he wrote this book called Setting the Table. And he had a restaurant called Union Square in New York where each table that for reservations was all set up for a certain situation. Like this table will be a full people of business owners, and that table will be full of people that are entrepreneurs. So it will be like you'll have this like cross
Talk kind of eavesdrop
Yeah,
on like what everybody's saying.
and they're like, oh, do you want to like start a business together? And that's what happens. That's what happens. And you start creating these things. And so for us, when a VIP comes, like one night, Gordon Ramsay came, right? And he put it on a different name. So we didn't know he was coming. But the table that we had set up for him was literally that table right there was in the middle of the fucking restaurant. And we didn't know that he asked him if he wanted to get moved to the back or somewhere where nobody sees him. He was like, "No, I'm good." and sat there in the middle of the restaurant, and he became the focal point of the whole space. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes that happens, that's magic. But then sometimes we always have to dictate it, right? We want people to sit next to each other. Like if there's a birthday here, we don't want another birthday here because for us, when we do birthdays, we turn on and play 50 cents in the club. And you don't want to do it from table to table to table. Like it's weird, you know what I'm saying? So we'll sit a birthday here, we'll sit a birthday there, we'll sit a birthday there, we'll sit a birthday in the back. So when we play that song, everybody's gonna be like, "Oh,
Kind of has their moment.
yeah, well, the whole little special moment."
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Did you know Chef Ramsey before then?
Never, no, I
No?
never met him. No.
Did he give you like a review or anything?
But I said it was great,
Yeah.
and I said, thank God, because I know he doesn't lie. He wouldn't lie in front of you. You know what I'm saying? He'll tell it straight. So I asked him, "How was the food?" That was great. I was like, "Awesome."
Is there like, I guess chefs you have in common that you're like?
Yeah.
with?
So he used to the restaurant opened Batard in New York. That chef worked for him in England. So that was the connection.
That's cool. That's cool.
How do you go about like playing the music you do play? Because especially here in Austin, you go to restaurants and then you kind of hear just like something smooth, instrumental, jazz, whatever. But then you come here and you're over here naming Biggie, 50 Cent, all these hip hop artists.
Yeah.
So like, how's that vibe? For like everyone else that comes in here,
Yeah.
like how do you like curating that? Because you even said off camera, like sexy vibes in here.
No, yeah, we had a situation in the beginning when we first opened the restaurant where somebody else was in control of the music and it was trash. And I was getting really upset because I was like, because the past is here and I can listen to the music. And I was getting really upset because the food was not. You can translate. You can transfer the feeling of whatever you feel through the food, and that's an organic matter. And that's what people don't understand is if a cook is having a hard day, he can transfer his energy to that food, right? So the food wasn't getting the same amount of love because the music wasn't connected to it. And so the first few months, if you look at our reviews, people are like, "Oh, the food is shitty, da da da, all this fucking shit," right?
On the way over here, I read a review. I forgot they gave like a 4-star, but it was like 5-star vibe, but 3.5-star food.
That's right.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's you have to connect all the dots to make sure that the person that receives it gets to have the best experience possible, right? Because if the food is good and if the service is trash, you're not gonna come back. If the food is trash and the service is good, you're not gonna come back, right? But as long as you have the food is good, service is great, the music was great, you can come back. So
That's what they remember.
yeah, so what I ended up doing is I took over the fucking music. And then I made sure that what I started noticing was who was coming into the restaurant. Before it used to be all Filipino young families in the beginning. So I would just play, real Mariah Carey, real slow, situation. And then I started noticing Thursday nights was a lot of fucking couples. I said, "Oh, they're trying to fuck tonight." So obviously started putting Usher, Anthony Hamilton, Snow Allegra, like these type of playlists. I started creating them, and everybody started vibing. And then when it hits like 8, 9 o'clock, I switch it, and then it'll turn up. I'll play some bachata, or I go into 90s hip hop, or I go into Kendrick. I played the whole Kendrick album one night. Shit like that. You know what I'm saying? It's just you gotta feel the vibe out. And then we ended up winning, well, not winning, but somebody wrote an article, the sexiest restaurant in Austin. I don't know if you saw that one. I'll send it to you, but they wrote the whole thing, sexiest restaurant in Austin, man. And it worked because
You just moved here too, so that's like for somebody to write that quick. That's a good accomplishment.
you gotta pay attention, man. Like it's not that hard. You know what I'm saying? People are people. You know what I'm saying? They do good. They're very what do you call it? They do things all the time the same way. So we had people come here almost 8 times already. You know what I'm saying? Like just because of the vibe, just because of the food, and they get the same service all the time. Like it's part of those things. So you have to, as a restaurant person, as a manager, as a restaurateur, you have to pay attention to these things. You can't just let it go to the wayside and think that what you think is the best thing for the restaurant. Yeah. You have to make sure that the branding matches the vibe, and then you have to create the atmosphere for it. You know.
And being here 6 months and kind of talking through the menu,
Yeah.
do you like have a rotational seasonal menu, or do you have like some like key staples? And I know we're gonna like kind of touch on this later, but
Oh yeah. So what ended up happening was we had a huge menu, and then I cut it down and kind of made what we call the headers. You know, so it's a seasonal menu. In Texas is I'm only been here a year, so what I've noticed is a 3 months. I mean, three seasons, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And so we're into our fall winter mix right now, and then we're gonna go into our summer situation. So what I'm doing is culturally, I'm keeping all the cultural stuff as a staple because Filipinos don't give a fuck what season it is. They're gonna eat. They're gonna eat it. You know what I'm saying? And then what I'm doing is I'm adding specials. So on top of the menu, there's a little saying like, "Oh, ask the server about the secret menu." So all our specials we call it secret menus, and that's what I'm using as a seasonal situation. Like last night, we had a octopus ceviche with some mangoes and cucumber and like pineapple tepache sauce that we mixed with our bang bang sauce. You know, so it's like beautiful fucking dish, right? And then like some dishes that I'm about to put on the menu, I run as specials to see if the clientele like it or not. So like last night we ran a bass cheesecake with a lemon curd, and that's gonna be the summer dessert. That I'm changing out some of the desserts. People loved it. Sold out in like 2 hours. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
crazy.
And so, things like that. You just gotta play these games, and then obviously staying seasonal, staying current, and then also staying viable to what works. Right on this block, I just don't not pay attention to our competition. You know, I go to Conjay, I go to Sweat there, I sit down, I see what they're doing for seasonality, I see what people are buying out of their kitchen, and then I understand how that works. So I got to make sure that I understand what my competitors are doing, and that I stay in the mix also because if I stay redundant, the people are they're not gonna come back before themselves.
One last thing for me before we try this food. First of all, I've never had Filipino food, so
Oh,
I'm
great.
excited to try it.
Same.
Yeah.
Second, well, I guess two things. One, does oko'a mean anything?
Yeah, so Oko is a funny branding situation because before I came to the project, it was supposed to be a Polynesian restaurant, like a Hawaiian Polynesian restaurant. So Oko is short for a pidgin term in Hawaii called oko'a, which means different, right? And then the space, this was supposed to be a Mexican restaurant, so we have those textiles all over the place. But they couldn't find a Mexican chef to take over this space, so we turned it into Oko, and then it became a Filipino restaurant. And then that's how usually restaurants work out. It doesn't really start off the way you want it to start off, but then it turns out the best way at the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then two, you mentioned earlier that you moved to America when you were 9.
Yeah.
You frequently go back to the Philippines.
Oh, that was my first time back.
Oh, that was your first time. Yeah.
After 30
So,
years.
how do you go about creating like real, authentic Filipino food? Because if you go to Mexican restaurants, it's not like, I mean, it's Mexican food, but it's not like real, authentic Mexican food. If you go to Mexico, it's kind of completely different. So you come here and people will expect like Filipino food. So how do you go about like knowing A, how to make it, and B, like what the actual like dishes are from over there?
Right. So that's the issues that we were going through in the beginning, right? Authenticity. What does authenticity really mean, right? If you come here and you say, I'm here to taste what my grandma used to cook, we're not going to have that because I'm not your grandma, number one, right? And then two, authenticity really is about how you represent it, right? That's where it comes down to, right? So when you come here, I try to tell the servers, when Filipinos come, you have to tell them there's not the Filipino food that you make at home. This is elevated because we buy our products from some of the best purveyors in the city. We buy some of the seasonal products, and we also use a lot of high-end products to create these dishes, right? And so the dishes that people come here, when they eat it, not only do they say it's better than their grandma, they're saying that it's elevated to the point where this was better than they ever had before, And so when the titas and the grandmas and all these people that come here to come eat, to tell you the truth, they come here to gossip, really, and to talk shit. So when you flip it and they come and they enjoy the food, you want to take a picture with you after, like all this shit, then I'm doing my job. You know, then I did it. You know, like I'm successful in that sense. Because if you can flip those people over to enjoying the food that you're cooking here, then you're doing the right things. Yeah. So authenticity can't really have that in the sense of what it's supposed to be because we don't have the same products, right? When I went to the Philippines last year, the year before last, and I ate the food there was some produce that I've never seen before. There's this green souring agent, it's like a melon almost called batuan that we can't even get here. They come frozen, but I can't find them. They throw them in every soup to get that sour flavor. You know what I'm saying? So and they just like burst into the soup. And so that's the other reason why you don't taste the same things because you don't have the same products. You know what I'm saying? So like the kare kare, which is our oxtail stew that we make here, I try to make it as authentic as possible, but for me as a chef, I can't serve it using Jiffy peanut butter, you know, because that's what they use to make the sauce. So what I do is either make my own peanut butter using roasted peanuts, or I find the lowest sodium peanut butter out there in the streets, and then I season it myself. You know what I'm saying? So when people eat the kare kare, like, oh my god, I've never had these flavors before. This is so different because they're so used to having that like that flavor profile from a product that's GMO. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever. You know, processed and shit, right? You know, so things like that, right? So I think when people come here, I don't want them to expect it to be authentic at all to what they think authenticity is. It's only authentic to me because this how I see Filipino food to be and how it should look, right? And other than that, I always try to make my food taste good, you know. So if it doesn't taste good, then it doesn't taste good. But that's the one thing I want to hear. As long as it tastes good, I think everybody will enjoy themselves.
That's it for me. I feel like everything's been answered, and I'm excited to dive into the dishes that you're gonna make.
So that's yeah. So welcome, yeah. Let's do it.
Machi, that's the machi with coconut habanero vin, some smoked charbroil, and Aureole. So I suggest you mix everything together and eat it. Right? Enjoy.
That's delicious. Good flavor? Yes. Yeah, you're a picky eater.
Not anymore. I mean, I used to be, but I should have gotten like all of that.
The sauce is really good. You got a lot of flavors. It like compliments the chicken thing. That's good. Yeah. It's good. Me, one for you, one for Bert. You're on hot. Cemetery. Oh yeah, like Egypt. Just go with it. Wow, flavor is crazy. Love some good wings. Love me some wings too.
Alright, you got your cutting ready? So with this, you got your bone marrow. You're gonna take that and you're gonna scrape that off into your clay pot with your bag of your spoon. But since you're sharing it, I would suggest splitting it half and half onto your plate. Okay? Underneath, you got your vegetables, you got your oxtail, and then the peanut butter broth, which will give it a nice velvety, silky texture. Enjoy, guys. Alright, so with this dish, you're gonna want to mix it up. Halo translates mix. So with this, you try to mix up your shaved ice. You got your pandan, your ruby ice string, your flan, and your fruity pebbles on top. It's gonna be a little bit of a mess, but it's well worth it. You gotta mix it up.
Those purple potato, yeah. There's some coconut, there's some beans, and you let that whole thing kind of melt and you just slowly on these.
Okay.
Go slow.
Wow, that's great.
So go slow, we're not too fast.